Welcome to Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. I'm Dr. Edmund Sulkowski, and let's welcome today from Angels from Animals, Jessie Klepsic. Jess, welcome. And Kara Anthony. Kara, thank you so much for coming on Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners.
Thank you.
Our topic today, and it's kind of a very important topic because we know that Jessie, in all these years with Angels and with animals, and Kara helping out as well as a foster parent, we know that we have dogs that are up for adoption and need homes. But today our topic is about dogs that are special needs. And Kara and Jessie have brought two dogs that are absolutely wonderful little beings who are special needs dogs. Now, Jess, would you define what a special need dog is?
Well, it's a lot of things to a lot of people, but it's a dog that has a problem, whether they had it to begin with or they still have it, or it will be an ongoing problem, but it will take a little extra care.
So I can bring up my personal experience. I, of course, have Tucker. We all know Tucker was paralyzed by some professional veterinarian 10 years ago, and he's a special needs dog now.
Correct.
And he's been for 10 years. And you would think that that actually requires like a lot more extra work, and in a sense it does, but in a sense it doesn't. He's actually easier to take care of than my other dog. Mm-hmm. But it does require a little more effort and a little more time, a little more concern. But you actually bond with that dog a little more, which is really interesting. And I know I've talked to people that have issues with dogs, and they say, well, I don't know if I could take care of that dog. But you end up changing your lifestyle just slightly.
That's right.
To accommodate that dog, mm-hmm. and you develop this bond and dependency on one another. Mm-hmm. And you find that that dog's depending on you, but you're kind of depending on that dog as well in a sense. So tell us what you have over here.
Ruby Rose.
Ruby Rose, yeah.
She's a Shih Tzu. But
we won't hold that against her.
But Winston also is a Shih Tzu, and you can see the difference in size.
And now, it's not that she was the runt of the litter.
No. Give me that name again.
Hydroencephalopathy.
That's what she had, which is basically a hole in this part of her head, which all animals have when they're born, but then as they grow older, it comes together. But you never really know whether it will or not. It's totally up to the Lord. And she might be not able to function. She might be a slow developer, or she might come along fine. There's a lot of ifs in there, and you really never know that. So the thing of it is, if it closes up, it might cause pressure on her brain. If it doesn't close up, then if she's exposed to anything where she would hit her head, it could kill her.
So that's like a little bit of water on the brain.
Correct.
And it's natural for that hole to be there. We have that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You say if, but you can... And you did this.
Mm-hmm.
You and Kara took special concern and special mm-hmm. efforts to help support the body mm-hmm. through nutrition.
Correct.
To help that hole close naturally. And you have a dog now that seems not to have any problems like that.
That's correct.
I mean, seizures aren't happening.
No.
The dog's functioning and all that.
Yeah, which is very good. But you don't know that up front. So had we adopted her out, I would have had to tell you that whole story, and you would have had to decide, well, do I want to deal with that or not? A lot of people won't deal with a problem, and that's the problem.
Well, that's the reason there are so many dogs coming to people like you, Jess,
yeah.
and Kara, because they don't want to deal with any problem. The dog has a little accident on the floor, and it's like, I can't deal with that, and I give the dog away.
Yeah, we
the
get
dog barks a little bit. That's what dogs do, and people give dogs away because they bark too much.
That is absolutely right.
So I can imagine what goes through some people's minds when they find that their dog does have a problem like that. Mm-hmm. But with a little bit of effort and love, you can overcome these issues.
Yes.
And now your whole house is full of special needs dogs. I know that. And
I keep those. I keep. Yeah.
And I think you give some of those dogs to foster to Kara as well to bring them around. But that's not your average dog that you rescue. You have a number of dogs out there that are not special needs dogs.
Yeah.
But so tell us, will you ever adopt Ruby Rose out?
No.
You're going to keep?
No, she will stay with me. Yeah.
Do you ever adopt a special needs dogs out?
Yes. Several years ago, I don't know if you remember or not, we had Peggy Sue in here. She was a Shih Tzu too, and she had a bad back leg. She couldn't bend it. There was no joint in it or something.
Yeah, I do recall
and
that.
her mother came with her, and two nice, a young couple. They adopted her. They have since moved, but she keeps in touch, and when she comes this way, she brings the dogs with her. But she adapted so well, and she more or less hops like a bunny, but she goes like a bat out of you know where. I mean, there's nothing that holds that dog back, and she's perfectly well in every other respect, except that leg did not have a movable joint. And we recently got in a little puppy, a pound and a half, same problem almost, except that it's a Yorkie and not a Shih Tzu. But these things can come, there's no saying why they come that way, whether it's breeding or whether it's just, you know, one of the dogs comes that
I'm
way.
sure that enters into the
And
picture.
nutrition, like you said, plays a big part of it,
Sure.
because all these dogs that we've gotten lately, they were bad with the nutrition. We really had to support the food and them and everything like that to get them to the point where maybe they're now going to be normal. But we don't know all that yet. They're too young. Where Ruby's going to be a year old in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, she's a little sweetheart.
Yeah.
Kara, you have Winston here. And
Yes.
tell us what's going on with Winston.
Well, Winston unfortunately had dry eye syndrome, and
Did
he
they
was.
know why? Did they ever give you an explanation as why he developed dry eye?
Shih Tzus are prone to it, so it's known with the breed to be a potential big issue with Shih Tzus. The problem is that when it's not treated correctly or not treated and ignored, then eventually the eyes will have an actual immune system response and it pigments over. The result being that the animal becomes blind. Even though physically their eyes can see, they cannot see. And that's Winston's story. He's 2, he'll be 3 at the end of March. He came in as a surprise to us. We didn't realize we got a phone call, and Jessie called me and said, "I'll be there in an hour. Can you take it up?" It's one of those things.
That
and we
sounds
had no
like
idea.
Jessie, Kara.
Exactly, you know that one. So yes, and despite caller ID, I'd still answer her calls. But the thing with it is that
We
she
should
brought.
talk.
I know. I was just thinking that. But when she walked through the door, I said, "Something's wrong with his eyes," and she said, "Well, they're all matted. We'll see." Well, by that evening, I called her and I said, "Jessie, he's blind. I don't know why, but he's blind. He was running into everything. He was, you know, I'm used to working with blind dogs and that." And so long story short, got him vetted. And unfortunately, it was past the point that we could reverse his sight loss. But he's a wonderful, sweet little guy, and he can adapt. He actually plays and runs and chases and wrestles with other dogs in my home. So he's not blind and sitting. He's right now very calm, but he loves to play.
You know, their other senses, especially their sense of smell, is so great that. And if I know you have other dogs that you
Right.
foster, and you have your own dogs as well.
Special needs, yes.
They kind of follow the pack, and they blend
do.
in, and
Yeah,
you know.
it took him a little while. His nose is a little bit off, but it's gotten better, and I've noticed that you know, he didn't seem to have quite as strong a sense of smell when he first came to me, and we had chronic ear infections, so his hearing was a little bad. Well, the ear infections took inflammation down. Now his hearing's basically normal.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that he doesn't see normal. May have a shadow here and there, but it's hard to really say. So when I talk to people, I tell them he functions as a blind dog, and if you think that way, he's wonderful.
Yeah, I actually had one of my rescues from Jessie, Zach, who after 10 years went blind because of a tumor that he had. We couldn't do anything for. And, you know, I started to notice him always at my feet because I'd turn around and I'd step on him or kick him. And like, you know, what's going on? Then it wasn't long before he woke up one afternoon from a nap and just was, I could tell immediately he couldn't see. Yeah. And for about 6 months, he learned the pattern of the house, and he followed the other, I don't know how many dogs I had then, 3 other dogs, and everything went fine until the end when the tumor, you know, started causing seizures and so forth. But they adapt incredibly well.
Yes. Well, that's what now, if you walk into my home, you wouldn't know that he's blind. If I asked you to come in and point out my blind dogs, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
So, and they will adapt, and that's the whole thing. Winston is able to be adopted because he will adapt. He's a sweet little guy.
Absolutely. Everybody here was loving him. All the kids were loving him.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, everybody
And
wanted to hold him, and he just took to everybody immediately.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
he's an absolute doll baby.
So how does having, and you both can answer this question, having this special needs dog impact your lives?
It's like you said, you give a little bit more, or you put the salve in the eyes, or if the dog can't go down the steps, you carry him down the steps or whatever. Because I have a little blind and deaf dog, and she's got to be close to 16. and she came like 10 or 12, they said, and she was just rescued from another shelter down south that was a high kill. So when I got her, I looked at her, I said, she's blind. And I even tried to do something, but they said they couldn't help her. She was just too far past that. But she finds her way around the house. She knows where her bed is. She knows where the water
You do
is.
things like gate the stairs
Yes.
off, and so that they don't tumble down,
That's
and,
right.
and you don't leave doors open in places you don't want them to go, things like that.
Right.
But they get around pretty well, and
Yeah,
you
they do.
and you have a little more concern, but it really is not that disruptive of your lifestyle.
No. Like Winston, he goes pretty much with a harness and a leash. Some dogs don't, but he does. But if somebody had like a ranch house, reduced steps where they had to go, they could take him outside. If they have a fenced-in yard, dogs will adapt to that. You show them where the perimeter is, and they know where it is. But you with little dogs, you always want to go out into the yard because of the birds.
Oh,
The
you want to
birds
stand
will-
right beside it because
Yes,
the
yes.
hawks will come.
Oh, yeah.
The coyotes around here now.
Yes.
It
So you
just,
always want to be in the yard with them. Never, like your children, do not leave them unattended. But they've become accustomed to everything in a very short period of time. He would be good to go with you on walks and things like that when he got to trust you, because he would know to stay with you, on the
Right.
side of your leg.
Yeah.
And he could function very easily. There wouldn't be a lot of adjustment for him. And like her, she's totally adjusted. But when she came, we had no clue as to what was going to happen. So we had to take those precautions and say, well, we have to keep her a certain length of time to see how she is going to function. Do we adopt her or do we not adopt her?
so we know you're keeping Ruby Rose. Is Winston up for adoption, or is he
Yeah,
up for
Winston's
adoption?
up for adoption. I keep ones that truthfully I don't believe will do better somewhere else, but he's great at my house, so he will stay with me till we find that forever home. I'm not going to let him go until he has his forever home. But the reality is he'll adapt very well.
So I know, and he's good with other dogs as
Yes,
well.
yes.
So, Jess, I know you have very strict and stringent rules of who you let your dogs go to once you bring them into your place or your foster homes. Do you have extra stringent rules now for
Yeah, we
in
would
qualifying somebody?
definitely have to do a very thorough home visit. We would have to keep in touch with the people, and the reference would have to be very good. And I'd probably have to talk very closely to the vet to make sure that they did take the dog in for the checkups and make sure they were giving the right medication for the eyes. Now, I might mention that he does get a salve in his eyes twice a day. And that salve is only about that big, and it's $40. Now, it will last basically 6 weeks. So that would be the other thing we'd have to tell the adopting people, that they do absolutely have to buy that salve, which is a compounded salve. So not all drugstores make that, but there's one in Canonsburg that does. And there might be a few other ones around, but that would be the closest.
And that would be Jeffrey's Drugstore.
Yes. But he absolutely has to have it in his eyes. Now, when he came in, you know how the vet puts that little litmus paper down in their eyes to see how many,
The moisture.
the liquid, yeah. He
Evaporation
registered
rate.
a 6. When we took him back for his checkup, it went up to 12, which she
Because-
thought was fantastic.
Because of the
Yes.
because of
And then it went up to 25 after that with longer medication.
with that medication, because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's probably an oil-based.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But he's doing very well on it. You can see his eyes look clear. You
Well,
can't tell.
actually, they looked moist to me.
They are. From where I got him from, he's changed tremendously. And to give the medicine, he lays in my arms like a baby, and he turns his head like this to one
Knows
eye,
you're-
then the
knows
other
you're
one.
helping
And it's
him.
just 10 seconds, you're done. So it's really not an issue. I didn't even train him with treats. He just wants love and affection.
Yeah.
Little belly scratches
Yeah,
along
who
with
doesn't,
it.
right?
Exactly. He's
Yeah.
wonderful.
And Shih
Well,
Tzus
very
make
easy.
wonderful family dogs. I mean, they are so low key, and they like being with the family. They like being with you. Where, like she says, the Yorkies are very temperamental, and sometimes Dachshunds are very temperamental, and things like that. But the Shih Tzu, as a breed, I've told people, if you want a truly family dog, this is the breed you want to look
See,
at.
now I'm of the opinion that Dachshunds are the best out
Well,
there.
That's
And
okay.
I love the Yorkie too, so I can't.
And I like
but
the
it's
Westies.
it's a nice break to have a Shih Tzu. I will tell you that
Yeah.
from Yorkie Toots. Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing how the different breeds do have their different personalities, and even within those breeds, there's
Oh, yeah.
sub personalities, among that. But they do have, each breed has its own particular.
Absolutely.
Now, I would not want a Jack Russell. That would not be one of my favorites because I had a gentleman call one time and he said, I want a Jack Russell. I said, do you have 28 hours in the day? What are you talking about, 28 hours? I said, because you're going to have to entertain that dog 28 hours out of the day.
Boy, I had a neighbor with a Jack Russell, and the Jack Russell, I swear, could jump straight up from the floor up to here.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like amazing, just
Like
straight up into
like
their
a
arm.
spring.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Very hyper dog.
Oh, yes. Not my type of dog. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, their own DNA bred to a certain way and so forth.
Yeah.
So what other special needs dogs do you have up for adoption?
Okay, Kara has 2 puppies right now. We just brought one in the other day. It is a Yorkie. It did have a problem with both hind legs, but the one seems to be coming around. The other leg is still, it's like Peggy Sue leg. We don't know quite whether there's a joint in there or whether it's stiff or what's going on yet. We haven't had him long enough to really make a decision. But the other dog, what's his name?
Rascal.
Rascal. He is a Shih Tzu too?
Rascal's a Shih Tzu.
Okay,
yes.
he's more like this color here.
He's black and white.
But when we brought him in, he lost all his hair. She showed me the picture of his paw. He had absolutely no hair, looked like elephant skin. So we went through that whole thing. Now you should see him. He looks almost like this dog here.
And so what happened? What did you change to accomplish that?
Food.
Except he
Big
wouldn't
time.
eat. So that was
Yeah.
my big thing.
That's
so,
why we got him. He wouldn't eat.
And he was severely malnourished. He could have been used in an anatomy lab easily. With all you could see was the tendons, everything. He was so thin and undernourished from not eating. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he became as I call him, an alcoholic vegetarian. He would not eat in normal things. So I had to figure out, using my critical care background and nutrition background and things, figure out what would allow him to survive. Because
So what did you feed him?
I ended up making up my own concoction of using milk replacement, which has the colostrum in it and the pre and probiotics, using extra supplements with omega-3 fatty acids for the skin, as well as using baby cereal, which is iron fortified, because he was severely anemic. He was hypothermic. Also, his body temperature was 4 degrees too low. We were afraid we were going to lose him. He liked peanut butter. That was he wouldn't eat meat. He would not touch anything. I told Jessie, I went shopping. I bought everything I could find, every different variety of anything, different textures, different scents. He would turn up his nose at everything, and he would actually bury his face in my shoulder and not even look at me if he didn't want something. So long story short, ended up making up a concoction he loved, and he loved his, what I call my peanut butter milk. And he survived, and he's now on normal dog food, 3 to 4 times a day. He's drinking water. He wouldn't drink water for 5 weeks. So he was just a mess when we got him.
Where did you get him from?
Well,
A breeder?
Yeah. Yeah, and,
Wow.
and they will not fool with any dog that needs special
Oh,
care
no.
or extra care because they're in a business. It's a business. You know, people don't understand it. They raise those puppies to sell them and to make money.
Yep.
So if they get one with a problem, they're not going to do anything with it. So
Yeah. That's the sad part of all of that. It's and those puppy mills that just churn them out over and over
it's
again.
not actually a puppy mill. It's one step up, I always say, because the breeder takes very good care of her dogs, but she doesn't have the time to devote or to find out what the problem is. So half the time she'll call me, and because she knows I'll take them.
Yeah, that nutrition is so important, and you just illustrated that, Kara.
Absolutely.
So, 2 of the male dogs, Mike Tucker and Zach, that I got from Jess, had no hair on their ears and no hair on their tails, and I think their paws were okay, if I recall correctly. So I took them to the veterinarian for their checkup and asked the question, why do you think they don't have any hair on their ears and tails? And of course the answer was, that's just something the breed does,
No way.
Well, what it was lack of protein.
Yep.
And within a few weeks of feeding the dog properly, full head of ears, hair, and a tail fully covered in hair. The nutrition and protein is so critical, and people don't get it. And you go and buy dog food, and cat food for that matter, and you sit there and you see so much percentage of protein, so much of this, so much of that. But most of these dog foods, especially the kibble, is sugar. And a dog has no requirement for sugar whatsoever. And it actually prevents the breakdown of the protein and the absorption of protein into the system. And the reason protein is important is because we need amino acids. So our body breaks that protein down to amino acids and reassembles it. And you go buy kibble, and even the high, you hear no grain, grain free. If it doesn't have grain in there, how do they make the kibble? They have to make it by putting sugar in there. That's how the kibble's made. So kibble to me is probably the worst food you could buy, and I don't think there's one good kibble out there. If you're not feeding raw, or you're not feeding, which I only feed my dogs raw, if you're not feeding raw, freeze-dried, air-dried, or high-quality canned food that isn't made in China or processed foods from China and then made here, because you can say it's made here, but the raw ingredients can come from China, you're poisoning your dog. And that's exactly how I look at it, in my opinion, So nutrition is such key to health.
Yes.
We're not any different. But when you have a special needs dog, it's actually even more important.
Absolutely. Rascal was, when I took him to our vets to have him evaluated to get help, to say, what are we looking at? They told me, use your background, you know more about this than what we do. And he needs to eat. But
and that's scary.
He was one. Well, they understood, but everything that they would normally do, I had already gone through those steps. So they were at the end of their list of things that they could do. And they just said, you're just going to have to try. And whatever you can get into him, which of course protein was my first thing to get the protein in. They think that he has a genetic alopecia potentially. We don't know.
When we don't know, we want to blame it on genetics.
Exactly. So, But again, he's gone from 1.5 pounds at 15 weeks with me to now he's going on 22 weeks old, and he's basically 5 months old this week, and he's now 4.8 pounds. And most of that was on my concoction that he was able to absorb and assimilate. And he's grown in length, but he hasn't grown to normal size yet. But in the beginning, we didn't know if we had dwarfism or what. You don't know.
That colostrum is so important.
Yes.
And that's what the mother
Absolutely
supports the baby on through breastfeeding. And you can actually keep an animal alive on colostrum.
Yes, that's why I started there for that reason, because that's what I said. And then when I couldn't find another protein source, what I was using had the milk protein in it, but I wanted a better protein content for him and a higher protein content. Then I found out he liked peanut butter. So I only use natural peanut butter that's just ground peanuts. So it's not the junk that most peanut butter is, but I use that to flavor. And then I started using baby cereals, iron fortified, and then I started using baby vitamins in a small amount, but getting him iron, calcium, the minerals, vitamins and minerals.
Right.
And he was able to assimilate that. And because of that, he's grown and thrived. And
peanut butter is one of my favorite foods, but it's not the best food for you. And so I think to get an animal over the hump is probably a good idea.
Exactly.
But in that peanut butter is Aspergillus AB fungus, which is black mold in the house. It's a cancer-causing agent, and it's also high in lectins.
Yes.
And lectins cause leaky gut syndrome. So it was
a starting point.
Yeah, it's a good
And that was the
starting
thing.
point.
We've progressed past
I wouldn't
that.
suggest keeping your animal
He's
on
not
that.
He's not
But
on.
even when I cheat with some peanut butter, I feel guilty because I know how bad it is. But there is some protein in it, and it is tasty. I'll tell you.
Well, and he had skin infections also, and that's why I needed the omega-3 fatty acids and
Great.
things with him.
Yeah, absolutely
just to
great.
get, and again, also for the inflammatory response that was going on in his body. So, we went through that whole gamut, but it was the starting point to get him to survive.
Well,
and move
I had
past that.
several conversations with Jessie about this dog, so I remember those conversations, and it was a tough one from what she was telling me. Yeah,
he was probably my most challenging for eating. Jasper, who I've had and still have, this was our deaf and blind inbred puppy. He will now be 2 in April, and he's done fabulous, but he couldn't eat because he couldn't find the food, and his scent was not normal. So I had to teach him. Now he eats like a maniac, and make sure nobody else takes his food. But this little guy, it wasn't that he couldn't eat. He had plenty of teeth because he was chewing on me all the time, but he didn't want to eat.
Well, what's interesting, and people don't realize this, and you're illustrating it very well. It's really our sense of smell that attracts us to the food, not the taste of the food.
Yes.
We just have 3 taste buds, but that smell is what really. And if a dog can't smell, and they rely on their smell,
Correct.
My dogs are in the living room, and I'm making their food in the kitchen, and I use one of their meals as a dehydrated food. It's raw food, but it's dehydrated.
Yes.
So I hydrate a little bit. within a few minutes, their nose is up, and they know that food is in there, soaking in that water. You know, getting ready for it. Right away, they want to eat, and they're smelling that all that distance.
Yes.
I can't even smell it.
Yes.
You know.
Well,
Absolutely.
the bottom line here today is don't be afraid to try a special needs dog.
No, you know, it's like with Tucker when he was paralyzed.
Right.
It impacted my life for a while because he was in jeopardy there, surviving
Right.
for a while. But he is actually easier for me to take care of. The only thing I have to do is I don't let him go any longer than 4 hours because I have to express his bladder. So I adjust my schedule. If I take off somewhere and I leave him home, I'm back in 4 hours. That's all. From the time I leave to the time I get back, I'm back in 4 hours.
And the other thing is, when you go out and get a puppy, you can end up with all these problems. You don't know that.
You sure can.
But
There's
when
no
you're getting
guarantee.
through the rescue, now between Jessie and myself, we've already put time, we've already vetted, we've already figured out the details. I know what Winston needs. We know now what to tell people, but we went through multiple medications. We worked through the process. So now he's simple compared to where he started
Exactly.
at that point.
You know, I would think that if you have young children and several dogs, it'd probably be hard to have a special needs dog
Yes.
because they do require a little bit more. But you know, if it's just a couple or the kids are older, easy to take care of them. You know,
I want to ask the crew if they would. I brought a picture with me, and they said they'd put it up on the screen.
okay.
Do we have that? It's the cartoon that I brought in. I want everybody.
There we go. It says, kindly the father said to him, I've left you to the end. Now, I don't have my glasses on, but I'm trying to read that. I've turned my own name. I've turned my own name around and have called you dog, my friend. Oh, I get it.
Good.
G-O-D, D-O-G. Well, I'm going to tell you what, it's pretty good for me. I can't see distances, so for me to see that, that's pretty good. To be able to
You get
read
an
that.
8 for today too.
But there's nothing. They are your best friends.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
absolutely are.
Yeah.
You know.
They
Absolutely.
give and give and give. They ask nothing in return.
I mean, even dogs that have been beaten will greet the people that beats them. You know.
They don't know anything else.
Yeah.
They don't know any other way to be except loving.
And those people that beat dogs should be thrown in prison or sent somewhere else, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you
Well,
remember-
Jess, how do we get a hold of you?
Oh, my name and number I think has been
But
flashed
go ahead and
on
give
the
it.
screen.
Give your-
724-941-5737. I live on the edge of Peters Township.
And Jessie's a Peters Township school bus driver.
Bus
A
404.
lot of people know her. So we're at the end of the show, Jess. That was a fast show. Kara, thank you so much for coming on and bringing
Thank you.
Winston and Ruby Rose. We'll see you next time on Healthy Pets, Healthy People. I mean, Healthy Owners. And remember, you can listen to me on AM 1250 The Answer every Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. On my radio show, Healthy Pets, Healthy People. Also,
And everybody should listen to that show. It's fantastic.
thank you, Jess. I paid her to say that. Remember, a healthy pet is a happy pet. And when you're healthy, you're happy too. We'll see you next time on Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. Thanks, everybody.